Hello, thanks for coming to listen to this, and thanks for coming to WordCamp. I'm going to start with this. Actually, the start of that was last WordCamp in Sydney. It feels like 6 months ago. Rebranded, been doing this for a long time. I rebranded to Still Not Scared for a specific reason, and that was to attract clients that want to do bold work. I want to be spending my time doing the stuff that I like, which is creative stuff. And so rebranded. Now, Still Not Scared has an ethos, and it's in the name. It's a question and it's a statement, and it's something we ask ourselves and we ask our clients. And it's, are we scared? Are we scared? Are we there? We're at the precipice of where something good is going to happen. I believe that good work is at that point where it has some risk, but it's not just doing creative or crazy stuff for the sake of it. It's actually finding that balance and doing it where it makes sense and has some strategy and goals. So I know that seems self-indulgent to start off a talk like that, talking about myself, but there is a point that I'll make about starting with this later on. This is actually a terrible title. It makes no sense. It doesn't really explain what I'm going to be talking about. I made that up, and I think I probably should have asked AI to do a better job for me, but anyway. That's true. So this is me. I'm a designer. I've been doing it for 25 odd years. It's really weird when you start out in the industry and you get to add experience. I know you're like 5 years and that's like 6 years experience. You get to this stage and it like hurts every time you're kind of updating this stuff. I am an educator. That's like an old-fashioned one, not like the influencers online that do cool videos and teach people that way. I'm just starting a job for TAFE Victoria at the Gordon, which I'm really excited about. I'm an agency owner or studio owner, Still Not Scared, which I rambled on about before. Bad speller and human. Bad speller, that you also notice that if you can't read the writing, this is all just my handwriting. So if you find spelling mistakes, there's probably some in there. And if you can't read it, that's also my fault. I also tend to speak really fast. So this might take an hour or it might take 15 minutes. We'll see how we go. It's a bit of a rant here, visual communication. Now, I just wanted to see who classifies themselves, I guess, as a designer, or they're designing things for their clients. If that's you, anyone want to put their hand up? Yep, there's actually quite a few people, which is good. Who is, like, say, copy or anything like that, copywriting? Yep. Developer focused? Yep. Agency owner or... Yeah, you got to put your hand up, yeah. Awesome. Well, we often talk about design. When I studied originally a million years ago, that's what it was called. It was called visual communication, and it's always stuck with me because that's the thing that we do for people, right? Like we call it design and it gets split up into these things: web design, graphic design, even stuff that you're doing that might seem interactive and dev focused is actually a part of visual communication. And I see that as a language, and a language that we speak and our clients don't actually speak. If we can help them understand that, we're not getting pushed around by them. We're actually speaking a language that they might not understand. So the talk itself is on this, the feedback loop. It's better when there's sound, but I've got a few videos. But this feedback loop, revisions suck. We all know what it's like to be in that revision hell. There's few things with that feedback loop, and that is that it's where good work essentially dies. You start off with something, it's a good idea, and it gets sort of whittled down into something worse. Now, I'm not saying all feedback is bad. It's just when feedback isn't guided, or it isn't informed, or it's someone's personal preference. Like, it's really easy for design to be subjective and for someone to say, I like this. So that's the point of this talk, around getting through that without having your work, I don't know, dumbed down or made worse. Now, one way to do that is fighting, pushing back with your clients. That's not fun and not suitable for everyone. Some people, they're not confident enough to do that. And that is definitely one way you can handle this stuff. But this talk is essentially about doing it a way that you don't have to have that fight, and just get through your work. Make sure it's the best stuff that you can do. Yeah, make the logo bigger, all those things that clients ask. What are some classic ones? Anyone want to stick their hand up and say something they've been asked that's like this? Make it pop. Yep. Yeah, had that one lots. What's that?
Show up.
Yep. That's, strangely enough, that's not one that I've actually ever had. I've had pretty much everything else. My nephew does this. I've shown them the work. Here's their feedback. Yeah, make it pop. Like, I don't know what I like, but I know when I see it. All those types of things. And the key thing with that is, why does this happen? Especially, why do we get this sort of feedback? Well, one, we kind of ask for it. Like, a lot of the time, you stick something in an email, flick it off and go like, looking forward to your feedback. No, we're not, right? We're not. So we kind of invite that on ourselves, and then we're like, you get this feedback, we're like, why is this? Why are they asking this? Why are they telling me this? Well, this is not right. But we ask it of our clients. And the thing with that is, if you ask your client for feedback, they think that's their job. They think that they're trying to help you. If you ask anyone for feedback, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to help you. You can inform your clients to get better feedback from them rather than just their subjective stuff. But and that's in line with my next point. We don't actually guide them. So we just literally, sometimes you can do that thing where you fire off an email, let me know your thoughts, and then you get their thoughts. We focus on aesthetics. So again, if you go back to the visual language, visual communication, what we're trying to do isn't just make something look good. I know that's what I said in my bio, and that's a bit of a joke, but I think the design is much deeper than that. And it's, the looking good is, again, that's subjective, but it's actually about what you're trying to achieve. Why does it happen? Because clients think it's about them. Literally, like that's what I've been saying, they think that what you're trying to do often is something that's in their head or something that they want to be represented about. You want to reframe that so it's actually about their customers. We all know this stuff. When I design something, I'm not doing what I want, unless it's for myself. I'm not doing what I want for myself. I don't need to like the design. I'm not going, I like this colour. And so I ask my clients to do the same thing. If they go, I don't like pink, but pink is suitable, it's going to be pink. And they don't understand what we do. Again, going back to that visual communication side of things. And one of the things that I love is this idea, bike shedding. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, Parkinson's law. And it was based on this idea that in building a nuclear power plant, there's more time spent on discussing the location of where to put the bike park, bike rack, than things like the security systems or the fail safes. Why? Because something like where to put the bike shed is easy to understand, easy to talk about, trivial, super low risk. Doesn't matter, but you can spend a lot of time talking about those things. The other things are consequential and hard. So there's high risk. If you make a mistake, it's got some big consequences. It's hard to understand. You need a level of, expertise to be able to talk about it, or put a lot of effort in. So how does that relate to, a website? That's literally going back to stuff like making the logo bigger. A request like that is the trivial thing, whereas you might see stuff straight away like your content's not right. You should be spending money on a reshoot of photos. You've got to talk about repositioning. Your logo sucks. Like whatever those things are, they're actually hard and they have a big payoff. But it's easy for them to spend their time on going, can you move that over? Have you tried that? So that's bike shedding. The idea here is to fix this, this situation that we are in. I wanted to say that what I'm about to sort of talk about is not actually a framework. So, I know it's pretty easy to package this stuff up and say, look, these are the things I do, like as in like ABC. These are essentially concepts or tools to be used in multiple stages of your process. So I'm not here to say like, do this as a one by one process. And I've got the arrows pointing. But if you're, say, doing discovery up front, or you're doing your sales up front, you can still use things like positioning, communication, strategy, collaboration, and to an extent, feedback in all of your different stages. Presentation obviously happens at one stage, or depending on what the project is. But the presentation is one actual aspect of what you're doing. You're always going to present. All right. So what about AI? With this talk, I've leaned away from AI, but I do use AI. I've got no problem with it. I'm not going to have a massive rant about AI. I feel like it could go either way. I think it would be safer to ask, is there anyone not using AI? Anyone like willing to put their hand up and say they're not? All right, so we're all using AI to some sort of extent. In this, a lot of the ideas that I'm going to talk about are the things that I use. 100% will work with you using AI. You could use it you could generate the actual creative executions with AI, or you could use it for, I guess, taking notes, anything that you want. And that, for me, that's how I am currently using AI with, say, ChatGPT to formulate briefs or, help me with that sort of part of the notes that have been taken as a transcript from meetings. I really am winging it today. So I'm totally comfortable with you using AI. I just want to get an idea of the room, like who is like dreading AI, or they feel like it's bad for the future? Anyone? Yeah. Is anyone really positive about it? Yeah, good. I don't know where I stand with it. I think that there's a lot of opportunity both ways, and I don't actually think that's the end of the world. But I think we're just going to have to work out and see how it pans out. Now, there's a lot of advice at the moment. You see that stuff that's going around that, like, if you're not using AI right now, you're falling behind and all of that sort of stuff. I'm not going to argue against that. That's 100% true. The fact of the matter is, though, now is not a good time to lose the skills that you already have. That gap of the knowledge that you have and the skills that you have are really going to be dependent on, even with using AI or without using AI. That part, those skills that you have, it's actually a good time to start doubling down on that and really don't lose the stuff that you already are doing well. All right, the first thing I want to talk about is positioning. This is a whole talk in itself. I could literally talk about positioning, and I've done one of the WordCamps I did before was on positioning. I'm not going to try and do too much on this. But does anyone not know what I mean by positioning? Just in case, it's essentially how your clients are seeing you in comparison to, one, your competitors, and two, in this sense, themselves. So positioning you as something like an expert. And it's just the act of doing things to change someone's perception. That's what positioning is. So how do you present in a way that clients are going to see you X, Y, Z? We do this already. We do this. This is what we get paid to do. So, whether you're building websites, designing logos, whatever, even if you don't think about positioning very often, that's kind of what your job is. Like, you're helping a client position in a way to achieve their goals. So if you're not positioned well, you can literally start with the things that you do well for yourself. So if you're a designer, make your stuff look amazing. But a lot of the time it comes down to your messaging, the way that you talk, the things that you say about yourself. Which brings me to this. That's why I started off with that rant at the start about still not scared. And that was because most of you wouldn't know who I am. I don't see why you would. But that was a chance for me to get in early and say, like, I know this stuff. I've been doing it for a while. And to maybe get your attention for 30 minutes or however long it takes me to do this. So you can start this positioning early. You can keep it going often, and it doesn't have to be any more complicated than something like what I did at the start of the talk. Communication, it's an obvious thing that we can do talk more, sorry, talk less. I'm talking, that's all right. Ask more questions, ask better questions, create the documentation. For me, that's really important. I use that in like the pre-sales conversations and sales conversations, and it is actually beneficial to me that you create the documentation. So by that I mean, you know, if you don't want someone to send you a brief and go, here's the brief, can you do the thing? Even if you're an in-house designer or something like that, or you are an agency owner or whatever, and you have a designer do something, you don't want to give them the brief and go, here, respond to that. You want them to actually be involved in that part to capture that information, because really what we're doing with documentation is, and in this communication process with clients, is we're trying to get on the same page. And if someone gives me a brief and says, do the thing, they're just presuming that I understand the things that are in that brief, the things that I'm being requested. Whereas if I get that information from them, I document it, they can sit down with a coffee, spend 10 minutes, and they're essentially reviewing that we're on the same page. And they've got a chance early on, before anything starts, to go, hang on, you've picked up on something that's not right, or you've overemphasized this, or you've missed this, which means we're getting on the same page earlier. Also, what we're doing with this is getting like early buy-in and getting like micro yeses. Really basic sales technique, you know, it goes back forever. But if you get people to sort of say a yes to a small thing, it becomes easier for them to say yes to the bigger things. And so that's definitely a part of this communication piece. Also with communication, you need to include everyone. If you know you're taking briefs, you need to work out who, I guess, needs to be involved in those things and try and include them in the conversations. Really important to listen to the client's language. And by that I mean the specific words that they say when they are talking about something. So if they use the word fun, well, what does the word fun mean? I might ask them a question about what that actually means, but then when we go to describe it back to them, we don't use the word like energizing, we use the word fun. That's what they said. That actually essentially shows that we're hearing what they're saying. I'll bring this up later because you use that in the presentation process to make sure that you're actually saying those words back to them. Strategy. So that's essentially moving on from the communication. And I've got here, designing without goals is like driving a car without a steering wheel. I know you could say without a journey. That's the sort of thing that people might say. But it's kind of worse than that, because I guess without a journey, it implies that you might get to the right destination, or you know, can take your time and go with the flow. But really, without strategy, you have absolutely no control on where you're going, even if you sort of work it out. And with strategy, there's parts of that such as, you know, discovery, taking a brief, and actually bringing things back to goals. So goals are really important with getting your design approved. Again, you don't want to tie stuff to aesthetics, you want to tie it to achieving a goal. So we will talk to a client. I've got here, who's doing discovery? So we all, hands up if you're doing discovery. Yep, so most people, chances are if you're not doing discovery, you're actually doing discovery, because you will be asking clients questions like, what is this for? Who is, you know, what's the audience? You just might not be doing it as a standalone service or a individual part of your process. But I can't imagine there are many people that are doing work for clients that aren't actually asking them, you know, who's your customer? What are we trying to achieve here? Again, discovery is a full topic. I'm not going to go on much more about that and sort of show the questions that I would have, but I do want to talk about, say, the difference between discovery and a design brief. So in a discovery process, we're often going to be talking about things like, you know, what people's, and there are overlap, right? It's important there's some overlap here. But we will be talking about things like, you know, what the goals are, you know, who the customers are. We're going to be talking about, you know, technical features, requirements, and to actually scope the project out. Then you go through, you know, maybe you're doing stuff like site maps, or you're actually doing a tech spec or whatever it is to work out the scale of the project and the things that need to be included. And it gets to a stage where design happens. So you need to get sign off on those things, and the design happens. So Is anyone asking design questions in that discovery phase? Yeah. For me, it's generally worked better to separate them out, especially in my time, I've worked at lots of other studios, and sometimes you're not involved in that discovery phase. That's like someone else's role. If you're working for yourself and you're wearing all the hats, yes, it might work for you to ask these questions up front and do it all at the same time. And like I said, there is some overlap, and so you can actually change your language a little bit, because when you come into the design brief phase, you will go over those same questions. You need to actually reiterate them and make sure you're on the same. You can't just make presumptions because it's in some of the documentation, but you can change the wording so you're not just making them feel like they're repeating themselves. This is probably the only thing I didn't actually hand draw. It was too much stuff. But this is just a rough idea of the stuff that I would ask in a design brief. And you would see there's some stuff in there that you would typically ask anyway. I don't use questions like this anymore. I've done it enough to just go off the top of my head. Same with the design discovery phase or something like that. You start to know the questions. It's actually better if, once you get comfortable, to not rely on these types of questions. You can just listen more and actually respond to the things that people are saying. This is a really good time for me to use AI. This is where I'm capturing, you jump on a video call, get stuff automatically transcribed, and then get it formatted, explain what's going on here, take all my notes. So that's definitely something that I'm doing. Collaboration. So often we sort of think of design as this thing where, or designers, so there's this idea that designers are sort of addicted to the big reveal. I get it. Like it's nothing better than clients going, "Oh, that's amazing." We kind of live for that. It's a really nice feeling. But you can actually bring your clients along for the ride, and it reduces the risk of them going like, "I didn't know what to expect," because that happens, right? It's either that they love it and they just go, "Oh, that's amazing," or they're like, "I don't get it." There shouldn't be that gap. It's a little bit like when you're trying to quote on a project. You should really have some sort of conversation where everyone knows what you're trying to achieve before you actually give them the dollar figure. There shouldn't be surprises in there. That's the same thing with this. You want to bring clients along with the ride for you, stop that big reveal and get some micro yeses. I have sort of talked about that already. So these are the things that we can show. I'm going to go through some examples. Sitemap wireframes. Obviously, I think that stuff is part of more of the discovery process, content maps, stuff like that. Site styles and mood boards are something that I want to talk about here. I've put in there Reloom. I don't know if anyone's using that. For me, a little bit like in the process, wireframes don't actually help the design process, and I don't use them myself. Reloom is a great tool if you don't know it, just for quickly smashing stuff out. You type in what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve or what the client is, and it will do your sitemap and do your wireframes. It can speed up your process a lot by you not thinking about what stuff you want to put where and what I guess hierarchy you need in the layout. But anyway, I want to talk about these site styles and mood boards. So I'm going to show some examples and actually walk through a project. And look, this might look major, and I'm sure some people will be like, "I don't want to do all this extra work." You don't have to. But also, I will show you. I think I can convince you with this example of how it shows you that it will save a lot of time. So this is more like a site style. I mean, what that really is giving someone an idea of what the site might look like before you've actually done any design. Different to a mood board because it kind of is showing those elements of what the website will look like without doing any of the hard work. You can do that pretty quickly. This is perfect for when, I guess, someone has some things set, like they've got a logo, you know what colors they're going to use, maybe they've got some marketing material. You can just sort of put this together pretty quickly. Now, you might do mood boards when it's not known what way you're going to take that project. So someone might say that they're looking for something that's, I don't know, clean and minimal, and they might use innovative. and they can be interpreted different ways. So you can create multiple mood boards and say, look, this is how these can be interpreted, which I'll go through a full project here. Again, I know this is going to look like a lot of work. This is what I'll put at the start of the mood board that actually outlines what the mood board is for. That's that first part there. What the things is, it will explain that this isn't actually the work. This is just actually about the style of it. And we're going to list the 4 directions. So this project, in that design brief phase, I was able to work out, look, there was different ways that we could achieve the goal. So, and I've been saying that it's goal focused. This here isn't presented like these are different things that I like or different things that you like. This is actually 4 different ways that the things could be interpreted to achieve the goal. There's not always one path. But we don't want to start designing and have like all these different options. We want to sort of reduce that. So important note before we begin, and this is extra work. You can totally skip this stuff, but I'm spending some time here, again, because of that positioning piece, to describe what those key areas are. In this example, I've only shown 3, but these are the different types of ways that they were looking at this project, and this is using their language. I'll take a step back. This project was for something called STEMmies, and it was with Deakin University, Swinburne, and University of Melbourne all joined together to create a STEM custom LMS and a brand to get young girls involved in STEM. Their key thing was everyday STEM. So, you know, there's all these things that we do with kids, and it's to encourage them if they are inquisitive about like how does a tap work, well, maybe that's a scientific mind, how can we nurture that, and just get kids to learn about, especially young girls, learn about these things. So in the discussion around this, we were talking about stuff like wants to be playful and educational. This is some of the language that they're using. Nature inspired, which comes from that everyday STEM type idea. Professional and sophisticated. It's from the unis. A part of the website part of this and the part of the brand is literally getting funding and dealing with the people at that academic level, rather than once you're in the LMS, it's about the kids, but there's a part of their project where that was a real focus for them. I did show how those colours would work. I did actually do typography as well as a part of this. There was a brand piece as a part of this project, as well as the web design. But these are, again, looking at those things where you've got playful and educational, what do those colours might look like? What is the nature-inspired colours? We start to see that there's different ways that this can be interpreted. Then this is the part of the mood board. Now you can totally skip all that other stuff and just go to this, and just go like when you're not sure a direction is going to work for a client. So again, this is that playful and educational look and feel. This is that, you know, nature-inspired everyday STEM feel. And this is that professional sophisticated. Any one of these as a direction could have worked for this client. It could have worked. We could have made it work. Would have changed the way that the language that we use. It would have changed the whole brand. It would have changed the website design. But without any of this, I'm just kind of stabbing in the dark. They're stabbing in the dark. I could have gone away and done something and then gone, here's this, and tried to convince them in it. But doing this, they 100% doubled down and went, this is what we need to do, right? It's this one. So it might look like all this work, but when you see the result, you'll be like, that's it. That's literally that one. So if I was going away as the person trying to design this, I could have spent a lot of time trying different stuff out. I was able to spend all my time just working on that one direction. And yeah, there was a little bit of rework and a little bit of back and forth. The part on the left is kind of more like that web style that I was talking about. A lot of those elements were designed in the branding process. And then there's the front end of the website, which, you know, the marketing part of the website that explains what it does. And all of these elements were used. There's games and stuff that were made. I had to actually create a booklet for people that were making the educational, like the games, the quizzes, all of that sort of stuff, educational resources, so that they knew the stuff to follow. Develop these custom characters for it. But I would have wasted so much time doing other stuff that all of these things might have had to be dialed back. It was a significant project. I get it. It might look like a lot of work. The other thing I will say though, with this type of stuff with mood boards, you can use them over and over, like especially if you work with a niche or something like minimal design. And this isn't my work, by the way. This is just me pulling stuff from Pinterest, just to set the tone. Like when they've said something like professional and sophisticated, I'm not showing all of the stuff that I've done. I'm just looking and doing a Pinterest board. It's not that complicated. Another thing with this idea of getting buy-in or collaborating with clients is something like this. This is a logo, it's not a website. People think this is sacrilege and you can't do this. Like you can't actually show really early stuff. Like they think that like you have to get to the end and it be polished. I get it, it's hard. There's a lot of confidence that you can build in doing the thing and making it perfect and then going like, here, but there's that risk. So in this, I opted for actually bringing them along for the ride, and I was confident with just showing them pencil sketches, and we had some discussions around that. I mean, obviously you need to explain to them that this is not the final work, right? But again, going back to positioning, they know the end results of the work that I've done because they've seen my work. So with this, again, that one that is almost bottom left, it's got the three areas and a little banner underneath. 100% that was what they wanted. There was the three key things that they were talking about. I captured them. They 100% that's what they wanted to do. And then that's the end result. Now, look, it's not the most amazing logo in the world. It's not my favorite portfolio piece, but it's just a really good example of, you can see that there, the little sketch it took me 5 seconds to do is literally the same logo. And it allowed me to spend more time on refining it. It also made the project more profitable because I'm not bouncing around on random ideas. Here's the execution in the real world. Another thing why this isn't probably the best project to show is not long after we did all of that stuff, I'm talking uniforms, backpacks, internal documents, brochures, they went into liquidation or whatever it's called. Private school in regional Victoria, and it went absolutely bust and doesn't exist. So that's a different take on I get results. But yeah, hopefully they don't see this. Presentation. All right, so for me, if you're doing presentation, I think it's really important. It can be easy to do that thing, like I said before, you do a design and you just passively, flick an email off, looking forward to your feedback. You want to present the work that you do. If you can't get people on there or you don't have the confidence, record a video. I do think it's better to do it in person because you pick up on the nuances of when someone goes like, what? Or maybe not that aggressive or exaggerated, but you can pick up when people are into something or not, or they're questioning something, and you can bring those things up straight away, or you can sort of combat those things and talk through them. But it's really worthwhile actually recording your thoughts and explaining and articulating the decisions that you've made. And that's a whole point to this, that I guess people aren't often great at selling design. And I'm just thinking back to, again, when I first studied, and one of the things that stuck with me from that was just that I was sort of told you could be the best designer in the world, and if you can't sell your ideas, you're actually less valuable than an average designer that can just sell their stuff. And that's for two reasons. One, you're going to cost a business lots of time and energy and effort, and the stuff's going to end up crap anyway. Someone could start off with something half as good, and but get it approved first time and end up with better quality work. So this is what this is all about, trying to help people, I guess, with selling their concepts. So showing your work, doing it in person is really, really important. I guess that's that whole point there, that even great design doesn't sell itself. You need to be able to articulate the reasons that you've made, some of the decisions that you've done. So that's really important. So how to present. Tie the things back to goal. You want to list, rehearse your points. If you're confident, you can just come up and wing it and make an ass of yourself like what I've just done. You want to articulate your points, your creative decisions. Again, going back to mimicking client language and stuff, they've said innovative, then you want to say innovative. And what this sounds like or looks like is, oh, hang on. I was going to go to this project here, but then I need to go back to the boards one. How am I doing for time? 10 minutes, okay. I've got enough time to talk through this. So before and afters, right? With this client here, they're essentially a peak body for disability housing. So that's a whole industry that people are doing, like NDIS housing for people with different disabilities. For them, what they wanted to do, or what their problem was in terms of a business, was that they weren't seen as an innovative peak body. They're actually seen almost at the same level as the people that are their members. They wanted to increase membership, of course. They really wanted to change the way they were positioned. Now, they had changed their colours. They weren't able to change their logo, but those colours were decided on at the start of the project. So I've not sold them like, oh, you have to get rid of your colours or whatever like that. So I don't think that I've done anything there. But that's you can see that what they were trying to do there is start that repositioning there. Some of the things they were talking about were being, bold, being innovative, actually look really professional. Also, make disability look a little bit more real world. I've got tattoos. That person's got tattoos. I didn't pick that photo, but it's to show that I guess there's a real typical type of photos that are so staged for people with disabilities. We actually tried to find a full range. I would have liked to have got photos taken. I guess again that's one of those high difficult tasks. We had a conversation around it. It just wasn't feasible. So in presenting this idea and talking to this, it would be really easy to say something like, "Oh, I've used your colour purple. That's the new thing from your logo. I've got a photo there. I've put a round top on it. And so I've got nice clear heading there, and just talk through literally what's going on. People go down the screen. You see it all the time. They actually say, "This is the section that's got the news," and that's what they say about the design. I can say something as simple as a design decision. That the round edge up there, that's quite extreme. It's something that didn't have a style guide or anything with this. But what I'm able to say is because of the shape in your logo that's round, I've made this accentuated. It gives us a motif. I can use this in other areas of the website, which I do further down. I should have shown the whole screen. But so something as simple as just explaining why I've made that decision means that someone doesn't go like, "Oh, I don't like how the corner's rounded. Like, shouldn't they all be the same shape and like just a little bit less round like other stuff? Or can't it just be an image in the background?" So I've talked about again, another thing with the image being half on one side, which again, I talk about becoming a motive of something that we do. It's in all of their other extended marketing material that I did, like their annual reports. That was to make sure that the content that we had around these headers and stuff was really clear and really separated rather than being muddied down. I'm going to go back to talking with presenting to a board. It's not fun, and it is a different experience. If you're dealing one-on-one, it gets pretty pretty natural. If you're dealing with a board, you've got to look at multiple eyes and work out what's going on in a lot of people's heads. So you kind of want to control the room. So you be confident, be loud, address people. One of the key things is know the saboteur. Like sometimes there's someone that just is always going to be like, but I wanted this. Again, that's where I was talking about early, where you've got to bring everyone that's involved, make the decision up early. You've got to get buy-in from those people at the start. But talk to everyone, get buy-in, cross your fingers. How am I going for time? Like 5 minutes? Yeah. I'm pretty close to wrapping this up. So just some other examples of work. That's kind of the same stuff as the last one. Probably this one here. I think this is funny with Content Snare. You can't see the logos, but there's a branding project as well. Their logo was like two pieces of paper overlapping each other. And they were like, we don't want that. It looks like, everyone tells us it looks like, just a standard stock icon. And actually in the process of doing that, ended up with 2 pieces of paper overlapping that's basically an icon. But it is totally different, especially the execution in terms of where we've used that. But that was one of those things where someone said, I don't want this because I don't like it. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. So once you go back to goals and say, hey, we've achieved this stuff, and yes, aesthetically it looks different. But yeah, that was that point where someone's subjective idea of, I don't like that it looks like an icon, or I don't like that it's 2 pieces of paper, doesn't mean that's the wrong idea. Feedback, yeah. Feedback is one of those things where that's that sort of step where we're trying, this is the whole point of, I guess, the talk, we're trying to control that feedback. So, like I've already said this, but you don't really want to invite feedback. I do want to say, again, that not all feedback is bad, but we don't want to make someone go, can you change this, have you tried this colour, just because they like it. So, control the chaos, frame the negativity. So, that's actually a really important point. I'm going to open this other bottle of water. But framing the negativity, what I mean by that is, if you're going to present an idea, you can do things, really simple things like say, it's okay if you don't like it, doesn't mean that it's wrong, and just take the burden off of that, right? And it's been said. Then if they go, oh my God, it's amazing, but what you're doing is framing like, it doesn't mean that it's the wrong idea, it's actually natural, it's pretty, you haven't seen this stuff before, you may not have known what this is going to, the final thing's going to look like. So you can allow for that. Bit controversial maybe, but don't use those feedback tools. You're just literally like taking it all out of your hands and just saying, just tear this stuff apart. With feedback, I like to get in on that early. So rather than doing multiple rounds, if I'm presenting with someone, I won't even send them the link. I'll do it live. And then if there's any immediate stuff, it's like, is there something glaringly wrong here? Is there anything we need to discuss? You don't give them the stuff and then take it away. I will go and do those things and try and address them up front. Sure, I'm not going to not let people review the work. But I'm just trying to reduce the amount of, please, just dump your opinion on this work. Also, educate your clients on how to deal with other people's feedback, because that inevitably happens. They go away and, ask their, friend or whoever. That's really tough. They need to know that all of the stuff you've done with them, you've talked about goals, if they ask someone else, they've just overwritten all of the stuff that you've done. So you need to explain to them, one, probably don't ask people. Like, we've got to make the decision ourselves. We're trying to do what's right. You've engaged me. I've done this before. You know your business better than I do. You know your business better than your friends do. But if you are going to go get feedback from people, let me do a video, or use the video that I've already recorded. In that video, I'm going to explain what the goals are up the front and explain, how we're trying to do X, Y, Z. This is how I've done that. Because if people are giving feedback and it's just based on their opinions, then they're doomed. And people will start to question even the things that they've liked. They might not have had a problem with, going back to one of the designs, like the shape of something, but if someone went, oh, I don't like that, then they start to question it. So help your clients work out how to deal with other people's feedback. What's going on here? Yeah. So basically recapping what it is, ask better questions, align the work you do with goals, include clients in on what you're doing early, present with purpose, and sort of cut out that vague feedback. Look, I did actually hand draw this and I just inverted all of the slides in to make them black rather than white. Any questions or horror stories? That's the end of it, by the way. Sure. I mean, it is a little, random, but I think you can totally do something like, send someone flowers and to celebrate that, or a gift or something like that. But also, just remember this, like, you're not engaged by them to do the business coach. She's that happy because you've already done that stuff for her. That's why she's so stoked with the work. That's the champion. You've done the work to not take on the guilt. They wouldn't be happy and telling you that that stuff is great. You should probably just reward yourself and actually hear the fact that they're saying, you did really great work and that's going to impact my business. Like, unless you're being paid to be their business coach or to be their... No, I'm shit. If someone is really happy with the work, and also with the work, with this sort of pushback idea and this and the feedback stuff and trying to talk to clients about that, a line that I will say is that, like, I'm not actually trying to be your friend and I don't need you to really love the stuff. I'd rather you tell me that you love it 6 months later when you've seen the results. That's stuff that's related to goals. If you're just giving in all the time and allowing people to get the thing that they want, like, it feels really good because you're just giving you're getting these nice little, oh, thank you so much. But the real reward is it actually making an impact for their business and it being the right decision. And you generally will, if you're good at your craft, you will know that visual communication, you will know when it's actually aligned for this market or to do X, Y, Z, achieve certain thing. Does that help? Yeah. I will also say that in that point, there's something interesting there in that, like, with this process, especially with the collaboration part and like showing work early and sort of being a little bit more vulnerable and having less of that, like, ta-da, then what happens there is you kind of get less of the, oh my God, it's so beautiful. But you get it more often. So it's kind of like, it's essentially more, but it's just lighter weight the whole time. You're actually getting them. Touch base with them and see if there's anything you can do to help with them. Might be more work for you too, Just touch base with them every now and again.